All right, Fresh. Let's travel to the Volunteer State, Texas A&M Aggies, and all of that little sideshow that's going on. I got some interesting things on Texas A&M. Is traveling to Tennessee to face the Volunteers. At time of record, over under is set at 55.5, and Tennessee is a 3.5 point favorite in this game. It's interesting. It feels like ever since Tennessee lost to Florida, we've completely forgot about Tennessee. And all they did was smoke UTSA in a game we thought that could be maybe a trap game, and then put the boots to South Carolina last couple weeks ago. And now look where we're at, But the question comes into play. Does Tennessee get caught looking ahead next week to that matchup against Alabama?
Well, I think the one thing I kind of want to see, speaking of Alabama, is from Jimbo Fisher in the post-game press conference, pulling the Denny Green and be like, they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook. So that's exactly what A&M did with Alabama. Alabama didn't do anything special. They just let Jermaine Burton run down the field, and somehow Milroe hit him, and a couple touchdowns, boom, boom, you're in. And Alabama turned it over a few times. A&M gave it right back to them. A&M just could not take advantage and stem the tide in the football game, pun intended. And that Alabama offense looked lethal. I think the first time we've seen them all season, that's the first time Alabama offense actually put up points and looked formidable. Okay, and maybe it's comfort. Maybe guys get on the same page. I don't know what it is, but Saban got those guys focused again. And you had a chance, just like Ole Miss had a chance. They couldn't take advantage of it. A&M had a chance. They couldn't take advantage of it. What A&M football team are we going to see this week? Did they give all of it last week and get crushed? They looked the second big game that A&M has looked unorganized in the second half. They collapsed versus Miami and they collapsed versus Alabama. Where do they get the energy back up? Max Johnson's a great story. He's back up and started a little bit at LSU under last there like 20 and 20. His brother's obviously on the team. He's not the most mobile quarterback, but somehow he gets it done. But he's only has so much to offer. He's very limited. You've got to have something else to give the offense a little flair. The running game has not been there the past couple of games. Passing attack was not as lethal as it should be. There's some questionable play calling. Petrino, is he trying to do too much with the limited, workings? Who knows? But it's just not. It doesn't feel like a Bobby Petrino offense or a Jimbo offense. It feels very stuck in neutral at times, and it worries me. The defense can only do so much. They weren't getting points early. They weren't taking advantage of red zone possessions, and that's against Alabama. Now you're going against a very volatile and explosive Tennessee offense. They can run the ball real well. The quarterback play has been, I think, above average, but not fantastic. Not meeting the expectations we expect to get from Tennessee. Joe Milton is a little too power armed, where instead of maybe a little more touch on a throw, he's still going to launch the rocket. I don't care if you can throw it 95 yards. I want maybe a 60 yards with a little arc on it. Let the runner go under and catch the ball. I want to see more of that understanding coverage. And if that offense, even with him playing a little rough, still can be explosive at times and they can run the ball, I'm worried about A&M. Now, with all that said, we thought Tennessee was going to go to Gainesville and beat the trash out of the Gators, and they ran it down their throat. Can Jimbo's and Bobby Petrino run the football successfully against Tennessee? Because they've shown they're vulnerable that way. Can they get that focus in there? Back themselves away from the pass game a little bit, run the ball, challenge that offensive line, be a little more physical with Tennessee, put them on their heels. Defensively, you have the playmakers. You've shown it. You can fly around. Can you shut down Joe Milton? Can you take those receivers away? Can you play sideline to sideline and goal line to goal line? That's what you have to do. They have the playmakers on it. Can they be organized at the stop? Josh Heupel, you got to keep your team organized. You got Alabama next week, like Seth you just mentioned. You have to come out here and slay the dragon right off the bat and set the tone for next week to be a big matchup. If you lose this week, I don't care if you beat Alabama next week. That's still 2 conference losses, and you're out of the race. It doesn't mean anything. You can smoke cigars in Tuscaloosa in the first time and whoever knows how long. But if you lose to A&M this week, it's empty calories. It's an empty win. So keep your team focused. Drive it home. You don't have to win by 50 over A&M. You just have to win and keep yourselves focused and stay alive to next week to play Alabama in Tuscaloosa. You know the environment's going to be big there. You cannot become overcome with emotions in this football game. Stay focused. Drive it home. run the football. Even if you have to be ugly and slow it down, run the football, protect your quarterback, get the win, keep the game manageable, and escape to next week. You have SEC East, still in your focus. You can't lose that side either. You still got Kentucky ahead. You got Missouri. You got Georgia. You got Alabama on your schedule. You can't get a loss here versus A&M and basically screw all the rest of it up. Um, Josh Heupel, can you update your coaching ability? Can you learn how to manage your team offensively and defensively and coach that as a complementary football landscape? You have the talent. You got to put it all together, start showing up, putting up W's. Because this season's a clunker. Everyone's really not going to have respect for what you did last year. It's a 1 year wonder, and you were 6 and 7 the year before. So you have got to figure it out to be consistent, and that means showing up this Saturday, taking out A&M, taking out Jimbo, and not letting their physical defense outman you at the line of scrimmage and not letting them run the ball down your throat. Challenge your team to be physical. Challenge Tennessee football to be tough. Under Philip Fulmer, they played defense and they ran the football. Challenge that. You don't have to come out and throw the football around a million times. Be physical. Be a developed football team, and you can beat Jimbo Fisher and A&M because they still have talent. Can't overlook them. As disorganized as they look at times, you cannot lose that focus out. Go after it. Attack all the way. If not, this season could spiral out of control for Tennessee really quick if you lose this football game. I think the Vols win. Um, I think the over hits. It's going to be exciting. I think Tennessee is going to reassert themselves back on the national map in this football game. It's a 3:30 spotlight. I think they will. If they don't, Josh Heupel, the heat's going to be on, and you better watch out.
You really think so, Fresh? I think that Heupel has gotten him like a little bit of house money right now because like you talked about with Joe Milton coming in here, we're seeing why Joe Milton, nice quarterback, I'd say about 75% of most programs would take him as their quarterback. But if you have an elite level option that you could go with, you go with that elite level option. They had that option with Hendon Hooker last year. I think they got that option with Nico, but they're going to need a little bit more time to get him some seasoning. So again, you got what Milton's going on. The thing when I dove into these two teams, we like you said, we can talk about the offense all day long, but it's the defensive side of the football. Is combined, they have 48 sacks on the season there. Texas A&M 26 sacks. They're led two guys, Edgerrin Cooper and Walter Nolan. They have 10 sacks between the two of them. There's some ability to get some pressure off of that defensive line. They got the other defensive liner, Turner, that's able to create some pressure as well. A lot of times in college football, you see the majority of the sacks come from the linebacker position. Occasionally, granted, you'll get some great defensive ends in there, but a lot of times you see it come in from the linebacker position where they open up a gap in the offensive line, that linebacker comes racing through. And you see what Nolan and Turner's been able to do for the Aggies. And it's nice when you can create pressure with your down linemen. And that's really something that they may have an advantage in that football game if they're able to do that. But the same thing kind of we can say the same thing with Tennessee. I mean, they got Pierce and Barron between two of them. They got 9 sacks on this season. So it's going to be interesting. Which defensive line can really control the other team's offensive line and throw them out of a rhythm? I like Tennessee in this game because they're at home. But I do have one question. It's Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart for the Aggies, beginning of the season, started off like a man possessed. Dude was against New Mexico, 8 catches, 115 yards, 2 touchdowns. In that loss to Miami, 11 catches, 142. Didn't find the end zone that game. After that, in the last 3 games, kids had 8 total catches for about 140 yards. They're saying he's battling injuries. He's kind of trying to play through some things. It's tough in college because we don't get a full injury report like you do in the NFL. You kind of will get some little tidbits there, but coaches don't have to give an injury report out there. So you go, well, is the kid playing? Is he out there on the field? He is, but it's not his normal production. If his production can change, if he can really put the pressure on Tennessee, that could be a real game changer. I don't think he's able to do that right now. Something just doesn't feel right with him. Like I said, give me Tennessee in this game. I like the 3.5. I'm also going to say I'm going to take the under in this one, Fresh. I got a feeling this game's going to be like a 27-21 game. I think Tennessee is going to pull away late in the fourth quarter. Joe Milton might hit something, or Wright might take it one to the house or something like that. It's going to be a very, very close game for 3.5 quarters, and it's going to be that fourth quarter where you see Tennessee really take control of it. That 3.5 is very close line, though. I had it right around 4.5, 5 was where I thought the line would be at. So if it changes, that's where I get a little nervous at. But I'm saying Tennessee by 6.
It's funny you mentioned the A&M defensive line. You started listed off Nolan, et cetera, et cetera. Those guys were all the 5-stars. I think they brought in the 4 5-star defensive linemen to class 2 years ago. That obviously the Saban and Jimbo argument back and forth. It's time for those guys to show up in a big game because they made a couple plays versus Alabama, but they weren't there consistent. They didn't show up late versus Miami. Last year, obviously, was a complete dumpster fire. This is your ball game against a big offense, and that's why you're brought there. So it's either on you or it's on DJ Durkin as the coach, the defensive staff. Who's going to be held accountable and who's going to actually show up and make plays and get the job done? Because if you want to get drafted, they're going to look at what you do against great teams and great offenses if you're on defense. They don't want to see your highlights against Sloppy State the first week of the year. They want to look at these bigger games where you're going against bigger competition. And if you're going into college football to get paid, then to go to the NFL to get paid, you got to show up and make plays. And I want to see what they do on Saturday.
Absolutely.